So River, she wasn't here. Did she send it to you? Is that what happened?
No, she didn't send it to me. What I did was, knowing that River wasn't here, I went and I found the bio, and I have it ready.
You know what? That is why you are Victor the Voice Fireman.
I'm the voice. Okay, Chris, we're happy to have joining us tonight Stacy L.L. Couch. She's a shamanic cowgirl who works as a publicist and journalist for Mother Nature. A pioneer at heart, she empowers people with the ability to explore life's big questions. She aims to show how to form a real connection with our own souls through the natural world. Stacy started her career working for Mother Nature with a bachelor's degree in ecology, in evolution, and conservation biology from the University of Washington. She's lived in the coastal areas, desert areas, marshlands, rainforests, grassland ecosystems, studying everything from seabirds to raptors to foxes to songbirds. That's a lifestyle that Stacy, I can't tell you how envious I am of your experiences. She's a published scientific author and has been the director of both a Birds of Prey education program and a community-supported agricultural program. In 2003, she joined the shamanic field, serving as a student, tutor, mentor, administrator, and graduated as a certified shamanic practitioner in 2007. She's a continuing student of the natural world and of spirituality, as well as the sole proprietor of Wild Gratitude Shamanic Healing Services, and she's the author of the new book, Gracious Wild, A Shamanic Journey with Hawks. Welcome, Stacy Couch.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's so nice to have you here, and I have to say, I feel really bad that River's not here with us tonight, because she was telling me earlier in the week how she was really looking forward to this show, because she studied shamanism for her whole life, basically, and she was really looking forward to it. I feel bad that she's not here, so I will be throwing this in her face all week. Is that wrong, Victor?
That's wrong, Chris. Chris,
right.
If I give you one piece of advice, don't throw things in her face.
Okay. Well, Vic, why don't you start the interview off, buddy?
Stacy, why don't you tell us, what is your book, Gracious Wild about? And it probably is wild.
Yeah. It is wild in the sense of nature wild, right? And it's a spiritual memoir, so I never thought I'd write about myself, but I ended up answering the call to write the story of what had happened to me. And it starts out with me living out on an island by myself, taking care of some endangered foxes. And I share a lot about different paranormal type of experiences that were happening to me on the island. I actually had loved ones who were on the other side visiting me in dreams. And also, I believe, sending various birds, mostly hawks and owls, to come visit me during the day. And so that was really the calling, or the opening up of, wow, what is beyond what we can take in with the five senses. And I eventually discovered shamanism, and at the same time I was working with a couple of hawks that were trained to work with people on the glove and go through education programs. And so the rest of the book shares my healing process, my exploration into shamanism, and how all of that weave together with the training work and time that I had with these special hawks.
Wonderful.
Yeah, really. What inspired you to write this book?
I was really inspired to write it because of the animals that I got to know. I worked at a wildlife rehabilitation center, and there was a lot of animals that came through there, and some of them survived, and we were able to release them out into the wild, and others, I feel like, gave their lives. I really feel like a lot of animals are really, well, all of them are really trying. They are speaking to us all of the time, and we're not able to listen. So I really felt the calling to write this book and start to open people up to, either open them up to the possibility that animals are speaking with us and that the natural world is there ready to receive us, or to validate, which is really what I found. A lot of people just need their experiences validated so that they can start sharing it and believing more in what they have happening to them.
Stacey, I'm curious, when you say you speak to the animals, how does it sound to you? How does it come in? Is it a thought? Is it a vision? Because I know for me, being a psychic medium, it comes in many different ways. I'll hear it, I'll feel it, I'll sense it. They'll show me a picture. How does that work with you?
A lot of it, I'm really fascinated with story and metaphor and synchronicity. So a lot of it comes in metaphor. I occasionally have that experience of hearing some sort of, it's usually pretty short phrase or guidance from them, but a lot, or having a sense or a knowing, like you talk about, an intuitive sense. But a lot of times it just is the timing or the synchronicity and how it weaves in with other events in my life. So I might be thinking about something in particular at a given moment, and then have this animal cross my path, and it just all starts to unfold in a really lovely story that gives me the guidance that I need.
You know, the word synchronicity is something that Carl Jung, I believe, had coined in place of the word coincidence. And once I had a lot of synchronicities in my life when I was a kid, and my path sort of went to a quieter place or a closed place, a more practical, everyday place. And then in my late 30s, it opened up again. And once it opened up again, the synchronicities just flew in like crazy. And, I've shared some of these stories before. Share some of the synchronicities that have happened with you, because I think that's a beautiful thing to share.
Oh, wow. Where do I start? Once you start, and is it the chicken or the egg, right? Once you start opening up to them, you just start seeing them everywhere and they've already been there, or do they actually increase? I think there are times in our life when we are going through a big transformation and synchronicities increase as we kind of increase in speed through our evolution to the next phase of where we're going. So one of the synchronicities I share about in the book is that I had a dream. When I was living out on the island by myself, I had a dream one night of my babysitter that I had when I was a child. She was like a grandmother to me, and she passed away when I was probably in my teens at some point. I wasn't in regular contact with her, so I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to her. And I had her come to me in a dream. I hadn't been thinking about her or anything. She just showed up in my dream. And I went, of course, and gave her a hug, and a lot of sensory, had a lot of things come in through the senses during this dream. So it was a very real type of dream where I felt her soft skin on her hands, and it smelled, familiar smells, and really felt her presence with me. And it was my opportunity to say goodbye to her. I actually, in the dream, was with her as she was leaving her body. And it was almost like getting to go back in time and say goodbye as she was leaving this plane. And the next morning I got up really, really early because I was going on a hike to the other side of the island. I had a lot of free time when I was there. My job only took me about 4 or 5 hours a day. So this particular day I decided I was going to go hike to the other side of the island, which took a number of hours and was out of any radio contact, no cell phone coverage, nothing, for a number of hours hiking by myself. And I had to get up before dawn because it was a pretty long hike, and I had to get back to take care of the foxes. So I had everything packed up and was going and hiking up the main hill on the island, and the moon was setting overhead with some wispy clouds over it, so it was very eerie type of setting. And I was walking along. I had enough moonlight to walk without a flashlight. And out of nowhere, I heard this blood-curdling scream. And if any of you or any of your listeners know about barn owls have a hideous blood-curdling scream. It is not a hoot like you would expect from owls, but a incredibly bone-chilling screech. And that's what it was. It was a barn owl, and came and flew over me. And, of course, they're white underneath, so also very ghostly-like in appearances. And of course I jumped and just about screamed back at the owl because it scared the tar out of me. And it took me about a day or two to realize or remember that my babysitter, who was like the grandma to me, that she had owls, pictures of owls, owl figurines all over her house. And so that is a great example of one of the types of synchronicities.
That's a great story. The one that I've shared time and time again. It's funny. I'd read James Redfield's Celestine Prophecy when it first came out many, many years ago. And one of the things he talks about is that when you're open to receiving the information that you need to grow in your spiritual path, these synchronicities will happen. You'll meet people who will have messages for you and have information for you. You can either accept it or reject it. But when you're open to it, it all comes. And one of the, and that's a form of synchronicity, but the synchronicity story that I share is that my wife's first husband was a cab driver. Before she and I started seeing each other, she almost went out with another cab driver. My last name in German means cab driver. Mm-hmm. So she was looking for the wrong cab driver all those years. And the synchronicity is she found the right cab driver, and that's a story that I share from time to time.
That's great.
Always love that story. One of my favorites. At the start of Gracious Wild, you were living on an island all by yourself. What was that like? I can't even imagine.
Yeah. And this was a number of years ago. So this was well before smartphones and well before really Google too. I think Google was maybe just a baby at that point. So there really wasn't a lot to do online. I had an internet connection, but I really only used it just for email. And I had about 4 or 5 TV stations was all, and I had an old Nokia cell phone that got terrible reception. I had to go stand out on the runway of the island on one foot to try to get any reception anywhere. So it was, incredibly, I guess the good word would be boring at first. I just really had no idea. I went out there not to live by myself. That was not my goal at all. It was to help save an endangered animal, and that was really my passion. I didn't realize what I was going to do with the rest of my time. It was very much like a vision quest. I call it an accidental vision quest because I didn't mean to go on it. And just all of that time alone with my own thoughts and with my own doubts and with the silence. And that if that doesn't open someone up to the divine or to the other world, the spirit world, I don't know what will. It was a very, very transformative time for me, and unexpected and scary at times too.
I can imagine. I'm wondering, number one, how long were you there? And number two, you mentioned Vision Quest. What did you get visions? What type of visions did you get? I mean, I can only imagine there were some wild things going on in your mind.
Yeah, so I was out there for 8 days at a time and then back on the mainland for 6 days, and this was over the course of 10 months. And we had to be flown out there. I was flown out there on a plane, 45-minute plane ride over the ocean, landed on a short little dirt airstrip and dropped off. And so that was 8 days was plenty of time. About days 2 or 3 was when it really started thinking, like, wow, I'm really here, and this is what I'm doing. And I was in my science mind, very rational mind, very much at that point. I had just finished my degree, and I'd already done about 4 seasons worth of field work, doing various things all up and down the West Coast and over in New Mexico too. So I was looking for scientific things to do and not necessarily thinking about spiritual matters really at all. And in terms of visions, my dreams were really the visions, I would say. And then what was happening in my waking days with these hawks and owls, these wild hawks and owls that were coming and flying over my head. One day I had an owl fly right at my face and then fly 3 times around my head and fly off in broad daylight. You just don't see that. And then why would it come and fly over me? I walked that same trail every day, so there was no nest nearby. So I was having these encounters with animals happen that I couldn't explain with my science mind. Really, all it was, wow, these animals, and I really got the sense for the first time in my life, I'd been the observer so much as we're taught to do in science. And this was the first time that I really got that nature and the wild animals were seeing me and that I was part of their world. So that was a really big conversion for me.
Yeah, I was going to say that as part of that experience of being without other human companions and being alone with the animals, that the relationship between yourself and the animals would really be enhanced and grow, and their trusting of you and your approachability as that owl did would be something that would really be wonderful. Did you have any other experiences like that of other animals coming to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were 3 different pairs of hawks, northern harrier hawks, that came to nest on the island. That was the first time they had nested on the island in recorded history. and 2 of the pairs were nesting right by my cabin.